Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Okay, we're approaching that time again, nearly the end of the quarter. So what will Tesla's 2021 Q1 deliveries possibly look like? Tesla usually announces the deliveries a few days after the quarter ends. It would appear Wall Street are expecting between 160 and 170,000 deliveries. So let's see if we can make our own estimates with the data we have at our disposal. Now, obviously a good start would be to look at Tesla's deliveries from last quarter, which came in at 180,000, broken up into 18,920 Model S and X's and 161,650 Model Ys and 3s. So with that, let's see if we can analyse what this quarter might be. It would be easiest to break it down into the number of models per factory. So we're told by Tesla that Fremont should be ramped up to 500,000 units for the Model Y and Model 3 by the end of 2020. So no hard math here. 500,000 divided by 4 is 125,000 total Model 3s and Ys for the quarter. Now in Q4, we had 162,000 3 and Ys total, but around 60,000 of that accounted for the made in China Model 3. But Q4 did not see the Model Y entirely ramped up through the entire quarter. But we are to expect that the Model Y at Fremont has been ramped up this quarter. In addition to that, they have also been using the Gigapress at Fremont for the Model Y, which could even increase production speed that much faster, and we assume that Model Y is still in very high demand. So we will use Fremont Model Y and 3s total at 125,000 units for the quarter. So a bit of bad news on the Model S and X, unfortunately. They've not been selling all quarter, despite so much pent-up demand for the new models. They're expected to start deliveries again in April, and we're seeing a few photos of them around now, but we have to discount all those sales, unfortunately, which was nearly 20,000 last quarter. But with a new line added, and when back in production, it should be in excess of 30,000 when ramped up. Although it also sounds like this date might get pushed back to about May or June now. So the only other factory we have making cars at this stage is Shanghai. We know that Model 3 capacity is 250,000, and it was ramped up by the end of last year. So Shanghai Model 3 should come in at around 62,500 for the quarter. We do have some data for February though. China Passenger Car Association, CPCA, have revealed that Tesla produced 23,632 cars in February. We also know that 4,630 of those were Model Y, which gives us 19,002 Model 3s. This was February though, a month with only 28 days. If Tesla achieved the same daily rate in January and March, then we're at 21,038 for each of those months, coming in at a total of 61,077 Model 3s for the quarter. In addition to that, Chinese New Year was in February, so it's possible things could have been a little bit slower than usual. Either way, it's very close to the capacity number, and I feel inclined to use it as our Shanghai Model 3 number. So then we need to predict the number of Model Ys from Shanghai. We have Model Y Chinese sales for January at 1,600 and February at 4,630 sales. Of course, March sales still haven't been released. I think it would make sense to expect a similar ramp-up rate as they had last year with the Model 3 factory. But this is where it gets a bit tricky, as February last year in the Model 3 factory in China was shut down for COVID. But they were at around 4,000 units in February last year, and then jumped to over 10,000 in March. But their January numbers were 2,625. So we have two ways of estimating this model. We can scale from January or from February for the equivalent in March. And we might also want to factor in that the Model Y factory is 20% smaller than the Model 3 factory. So the increase from January to March in the Model 3 factory is exactly fourfold, which would take Model Y from 1,600 to 6,191, or a difference of 4,591 cars. But if we are also to assume the 20% size difference, then we should reduce that number to 3,673. Adding it onto the 1,600 from January would come in at 5,273 cars for March. Or the other approach, we take the data from February to March and scale that way, which is about 2.5 times as many. And if February had 4,630 cars, then 2.5 times that comes in at 11,575, which is an increase of 6,946. And then we discount that 20% due to the factory being smaller. We come to 5,556 extra cars from February, giving a March total of 10,186. but there was COVID in February last year too, so they may have actually scaled up the Model Y even higher than that. So we have two answers here. I think the easiest thing might be to just take the difference between the two. Then we're at 7,730 Model Ys, giving us a total of 13,960 Model Ys from China in Q1. So bear in mind, this data came from just Model Y sales in China and not necessarily total deliveries from the factory. But I would say it likely that all these Model Ys were sold in China, as it would be the easiest without more logistics of having to ship them to the likes of Korea or wherever. Okay, now we add all these numbers together and we come to a total of 200,037. And I have to say, I'm quite happy about these numbers. I was thinking there might be less than last quarter due to the lack of Model S and X sales. I was already preparing myself for all the headlines of Tesla's sales falling, and possibly even preparing myself for a potential loss for the month too. Although I'm still not holding out for a great profit, as Model X and S likely carry the highest gross profit from all the models. On top of that, Tesla have been spending a lot of money on redoing the Model S and X production line, not to mention more Gigapress purchases too. But on the contrary, Model 3 in Fremont has started using LFP batteries this quarter, which I think could increase the margin for the Model 3s by as much as $5,000. That's potentially an extra $300 million or so profit. But there's no point in doing my Q1 earnings estimate until we get official delivery numbers. So I'm happy with these delivery numbers, and next quarter we might expect an additional 25,000 Model Ys from China, and hopefully a few Model S and Xs too. But to be honest, we aren't going to see any big needle movers, at least in the aspect of vehicle production, until about the third quarter. If they have ramped up both S and X lines then, and getting in some Berlin Model Ys too, we could be getting closer to 300,000 deliveries for the third quarter, which is starting to get pretty serious. And then with Texas in the fourth quarter, we could see over 1 million deliveries for the entire year. Unfortunately, the delay in S and X makes 1.2 million look a bit unlikely, but we'll see how Berlin and Texas go. With Tesla announcing deliveries of the Semi later this year, if they're coming from Texas, then that's a really good sign. But historically, Tesla's Q1 is often 20 to 25% less than the previous Q4. This is due to autos being much bigger sellers at the end of the year. But you would think that if Tesla sell every car, then what difference would it make? We also had Tesla pushing extra hard to reach that 500,000 cars for the year number. So although these numbers do track the math, I think they are on the optimistic side. And if I was a betting man, then I'd probably guess a lower number. Those China numbers feel solid to me though. So what if we wind down our Fremont numbers by 10%, taking 125,000 to 112,500, taking our new total number to 187,537. As far as I can tell, this seems higher than everyone else's estimate, and significantly better than Wall Street's. But in addition to that, I wouldn't be totally surprised if Tesla actually surpassed 200,000 deliveries either. Now, with the stock down where it is today, some call options are starting to look quite tempting. Let me know what you think the delivery numbers will be for this quarter. Leave your number in the comments below. Thanks for listening, please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe.